6 a.m. Cops at my door again. Karen pointing from her fence line, clipboard in hand, like she's busting a drug cartel. My crime this time? Unpermitted pool construction on my own property. Officer Martinez looked embarrassed reading her complaint. The same pool that had been a mosquito swamp since Bush was president. Karen stood there in her tennis whites, playing neighborhood dictator like she'd done for months. What she didn't know, I'd been documenting every illegal move she made, and my lawyer was ready with evidence that would end her HOA reign forever. The pool she kept trying to sabotage? It would soon host a victory celebration. Drop a comment, where are you watching from? This revenge story will blow your mind. Let me back up and tell you how this whole mess started. My name's Mike Henderson, I'm 52, and I spent 25 years as an electrician dreaming about owning a house with a pool. Not some fancy mansion, just a decent place where my wife Sarah and I could host family barbecues without worrying about the neighbors upstairs stomping around. Sarah's a school librarian, salt of the earth, and she'd been dropping hints about wanting to host her book club by a pool for about a decade. So when we finally saved enough for our dream house on Maple Street, that pool was the selling point. Sure, it was 30 years old with a cracked liner and a filtration system that sounded like a dying elephant, but it was ours. The musty smell of old pool water hit you from 20 feet away. Think swamp meets chemical plant. Algae coated the concrete like green carpet, and every step around the deck crunched through layers of dead leaves that had been collecting since the Clinton administration. Then I got the renovation estimate, $40,000, for a pool that was basically a glorified concrete hole. That's when I decided to go the DIY route and do most of the work myself. I mean, I'd been an electrician for decades. How hard could pool renovation be? That's when I met Karen Whitfield. Karen showed up on our second day in the house, click-clacking across my driveway in heels that could puncture steel. She's 55, perfectly coiffed blonde hair that defies gravity, and she carried herself like she owned the whole neighborhood. Which, it turns out, she kind of thought she did. Her perfume, this overpowering vanilla scent, lingered in the air for 5 minutes after she left, like a territorial marking. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she chirped, handing me a thick packet. "I'm Karen, your HOA president. This is your homeowner's manual. All the rules and regulations to keep our community beautiful." I flipped through the packet. Grass height regulations, garbage can placement requirements, holiday decoration guidelines. Sarah rolled her eyes behind Karen's back. We'd escaped apartment living for this? "Oh, and if you're planning any exterior improvements," Karen added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "you'll need architectural approval first. We can't have people just changing things willy-nilly." I started draining the pool the next week. That's when Karen appeared again, this time with a measuring tape and a clipboard. She stood at the fence line taking photos like she was documenting a crime scene. "Excuse me," she called out, "but pool renovation requires HOA architectural approval. I don't see any permits posted." I walked over, still holding the pool skimmer. "It's just restoration, not construction. Same pool, just fixing what's broken." Her smile got tighter. "Any exterior changes require approval. That's a $500 daily fine until you get proper permits." "Daily fine?" I looked at Sarah, who was standing in the doorway looking like she wanted to throw something. "The architectural committee will review your plans next month," Karen continued. "I'll email you the application." After she left, I did some digging. The HOA architectural committee consisted of exactly 3 people, Karen and 2 of her friends. And here's the kicker. I found 3 identical pool renovations within 4 blocks that had happened in the past 2 years. Guess what? No architectural approval required for any of them. Sarah found the neighborhood Facebook group that night. Karen had already posted about us. New residents beginning unpermitted construction, concerned about property values and community standards. The comments were split. Half the neighbors supported us. They'd dealt with Karen's nitpicking for years. The other half were scared of getting on her bad side. One guy named Bob commented, "Maybe we should let people improve their own property without a committee approval for fixing a broken pool." Karen's response? "Some people don't understand what it takes to maintain a quality neighborhood." That's when I realized this wasn't about pool permits or community standards. This was about control, and Karen had just picked a fight with the wrong electrician. Karen wasn't about to let this slide. 3 days after our fence line conversation, I got a certified letter from the city building department. Someone had filed a formal complaint claiming I was doing unpermitted construction that violated city codes. Guess who? The letter demanded I cease all construction activities immediately and restore the property to its original condition. Original condition? You mean the swamp that was breeding mosquitoes and probably had its own ecosystem? But Karen wasn't done. She posted in the neighborhood Facebook group again. Rogue homeowners destroying community standards with unpermitted construction. Who do we contact when new residents refuse to follow basic rules? The comments section turned into a battlefield. Margaret Williams wrote, "Maybe mind your own business, Karen." Bob Rodriguez added, "I've been here 15 years and never needed permission to fix my own property." Karen's response? She started a new post with photos of my construction site, basically my pool with some equipment around it. Visual evidence of ongoing violations. Concerned residents, please share. That's when I decided to fight fire with fire. I spent the weekend researching HOA bylaws. All 47 pages of legal jargon that would put an insomniac to sleep. But buried in section March 7th, 12, I found the golden nugget. Architectural approval was only required for structural additions that alter the existing footprint of the property. Pool renovation? Not an addition. I was restoring existing infrastructure, not changing the footprint. Karen's rules literally didn't apply. But here's where it gets interesting. I filed a public records request for all HOA architectural approvals from the past 5 years. Cost me $12 and a trip to City Hall, but what I found was pure gold. Karen had approved identical pool renovations for 3 different properties. Not similar, identical. Same contractor, same scope of work, same timeline. The difference? Those homeowners were her real estate clients. Even better, I found Karen's business Instagram account. She loves posting before and after photos of her listings, right? Well, there was her own pool renovation from 2019, complete with construction photos, timeline, and a caption about increasing property value through smart renovations. Did she get architectural approval for her own pool? I checked the public records. Nope. I screenshotted everything. The Facebook posts, the Instagram photos, the public records showing her selective enforcement. Then I printed it all out and organized it in a nice folder labeled Evidence. The sound of my pool pump finally working after 20 years of silence was like music. Sarah brought me a beer while I stood there watching crystal clear water circulate for the first time since we'd moved in. Karen's been watching from her kitchen window for an hour, Sarah laughed. She keeps opening and closing the blinds like some kind of spy movie. That evening, Karen knocked on our door, not the friendly neighbor routine this time. She was all business, holding another folder. "Mr. Henderson," she said, "the HOA board has reviewed your situation. We're calling an emergency meeting to address your violations." "What violations?" I asked, holding my evidence folder behind my back. "Unpermitted construction, failure to obtain architectural approval, and," she paused dramatically, "disturbing the peace with excessive construction noise." Excessive noise? I'd been using basic hand tools during normal daytime hours. "The emergency meeting is Thursday at 7, she continued. "I suggest you bring a lawyer." After she left, Sarah shook her head. "She actually suggested you bring a lawyer? Does she realize that makes her sound like the bad guy?" Here's what I learned about HOA law during my research. Selective enforcement is legally questionable. When an HOA applies rules to some homeowners while ignoring identical situations with others, it opens them up to discrimination claims and legal challenges. Takeaway: HOAs cannot enforce rules against some homeowners while ignoring identical violations by others. I had my defense strategy, but more importantly, I was starting to see the bigger picture. This wasn't just about my pool. Karen had been pulling this selective enforcement game for years. The emergency meeting she was planning? It was about to become her worst nightmare. Because I wasn't just bringing a lawyer, I was bringing evidence. Karen doubled down hard. By the end of the week, she'd organized a concerned neighbors petition to the city council claiming my pool renovation was creating drainage issues that could affect other properties. Drainage issues. From a pool that hadn't held water properly in a decade. She hired a private inspector, paid him $300 to find code violations. The guy spent 2 hours with a clipboard measuring everything twice. His report? Everything was up to code. Karen was not happy. But here's where Karen really showed her true colors. She started showing up during construction with her own clipboard, claiming she was measuring noise levels and documenting safety violations. Picture this woman in her real estate blazer and heels, standing in my backyard at 7 in the morning with a decibel meter app on her phone. That compressor is definitely over the noise ordinance limit, she announced one Tuesday morning. My contractor, Dave, looked at her like she'd grown a second head. Ma'am, it's 8 a.m. on a weekday. We're using standard equipment during legal construction hours. I'm documenting everything, she replied, taking photos of Dave like he was a criminal. And that's when I decided it was time to level up my response. I hired an attorney who specializes in HOA disputes. Best $300 I ever spent for a consultation. Within 1 hour, attorney Jennifer Walsh had found more violations in Karen's HOA management than I'd found in her enforcement patterns. Your HOA is operating illegally, Jennifer told me, flipping through her notes. State law requires architectural committees to have a minimum of 5 members. Your HOA has 3. Every decision they've made in the past 2 years is legally questionable. But wait, it gets better. Jennifer subpoenaed the HOA financial records as part of my defense preparation. What she found blew my mind. Karen had been collecting architectural review fees and depositing them into her personal checking account. State law requires all HOA fees to go into an escrow account managed by the board. Personal use of HOA funds is embezzlement under State Statute 1844 F401. She's been skimming money for years, Jennifer explained. We're not just talking about your pool anymore. This is criminal fraud. Word started getting around the neighborhood about my legal research. Other neighbors began coming forward with their own Karen stories. Margaret Williams knocked on my door first. I wanted to thank you for standing up to her, she said. She rejected my fence repair application last year, claiming it would lower neighborhood standards. My fence was literally falling down. Bob Rodriguez stopped by next. This guy's a Vietnam veteran, walks with a cane after taking shrapnel to his leg. Karen tried to block my wheelchair ramp installation, he told me, said it was an aesthetic concern that needed special approval. Took me 6 months to get a ramp installed at my own house. The pattern was becoming clear. Karen wasn't just power hungry, she was targeting specific people. Working class families, elderly residents, anyone who didn't fit her picture of the ideal neighborhood. My stress-baking wife, Sarah, had been churning out chocolate chip cookies every night, and the whole neighborhood smelled like a bakery. Even Karen's harassment couldn't stop the amazing aroma drifting from our kitchen windows. You know what I love, Sarah said, pulling another batch from the oven. Every time Karen parks outside to spy on us, she gets to smell these cookies and know she's not getting any. The sound of neighbors' conversations stopping whenever Karen approached became a neighborhood soundtrack. People would be chatting over fences, kids playing in yards, normal suburban life. Then Karen's car would turn the corner and everything went quiet. But my favorite part was listening to my pool filter humming peacefully in the background while Karen had her surveillance sessions. 20 years that pool sat silent, and now it was working perfectly while she slowly lost her mind trying to stop progress. Here's the legal knowledge I gained during this phase: protected class discrimination in housing law. HOA presidents cannot reject improvements based on age, disability status, economic background, or other protected characteristics. Takeaway: HOA presidents cannot reject improvements based on ethnic, religious, or disability considerations. Karen's emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. She'd sent formal notices to all residents, claiming we needed to address ongoing violations threatening community standards. What she didn't know was that I'd been building a case file that would expose years of illegal HOA management, financial fraud, and discriminatory enforcement. Jennifer had everything ready: criminal referrals, civil complaints, and enough evidence to remove Karen from her throne permanently. The meeting was going to be interesting. Karen thought she was putting me on trial. She had no idea she was walking into her own courtroom. Karen went full nuclear the week before the HOA meeting. I'm talking scorched earth, burn it all down desperation. Monday morning, I woke up to police at my door, again. Karen had called them claiming my contractors were trespassing on HOA common property. The officer looked embarrassed, having to explain that someone reported men with hard hats as suspicious activity. Sir, are these your contractors working on your pool? Officer Martinez asked. Yes, officer, on my property, during legal construction hours. He sighed. Ma'am, he called to Karen, who was lurking by her mailbox. This is private property. These men are authorized to be here. Tuesday brought a noise complaint. Karen claimed my pool equipment was violating the city noise ordinance. The officer brought an actual decibel meter this time. My pool filter measured quieter than a dishwasher. Wednesday, she tried a new tactic. She parked her Mercedes directly in front of my driveway, claiming she was monitoring compliance. with HOA regulations. When I asked her to move so I could go to work, she informed me she had every right to park on a public street. Technically true, practically insane. That's when I made my smartest decision yet. I installed security cameras. 4 HD cameras covering every angle of my property, motion activated, cloud storage, cost me $800, but within 48 hours I had Karen on video trying to poison my new pool landscaping with herbicide. 3 a.m. on Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a motion alert. There was Karen, dressed in dark clothing like some kind of suburban ninja, pouring weed killer on the plants around my pool deck. The infrared cameras caught everything in crystal clear detail. I saved the footage and went back to bed. Let her finish her vandalism. I had her dead to rights now. But Karen's desperation was just getting started. She filed a formal harassment complaint against me with the police, claiming I was intimidating and threatening her. The responding officer reviewed my security footage and noted that Karen was the one repeatedly coming onto my property uninvited. Friday brought her most ridiculous move yet. She attempted to get the city to condemn my pool as a public health hazard. Her reasoning? The construction process might create mosquito breeding conditions that could affect neighborhood safety. The city inspector who came out actually laughed. "Ma'am, this is the cleanest construction site I've seen all year. The old pool was more of a health hazard when it was full of stagnant water." While Karen was busy making herself look increasingly unhinged, I was building my coalition. The neighborhood was starting to choose sides, and most people were getting tired of Karen's antics. Bob Rodriguez organized an informal neighborhood meeting at the community center. 12 families showed up, and everyone had a Karen story. Margaret Williams went first. She rejected my garden fence repair 3 times, claiming the wood stain was incompatible with neighborhood aesthetics. It took 6 months to get approval for basic maintenance. Dave Thompson from Elm Street. She tried to fine me for parking my work truck in my own driveway, said commercial vehicles were prohibited, but there's nothing in the HOA bylaws about it. Susan Martinez, she blocked my daughter's lemonade stand, claiming we needed a permit for commercial activity. It was a kid's fundraiser for the animal shelter. The pattern was obvious. Karen targeted working families while rubber stamping everything for her real estate clients. We decided to attend Karen's emergency HOA meeting en masse. Safety in numbers and witnesses for whatever drama she was planning. Karen's counterattack came Saturday morning. She posted my home address on the neighborhood Facebook group, asking concerned residents to document any ongoing violations they witnessed. Basically, she was crowdsourcing harassment. The acrid smell of dying plants, where Karen had poured herbicide, was still lingering around my pool deck. But honestly, her increasingly erratic behavior was more toxic than any weed killer. Sunday night, I could hear Karen's garage door slamming at all hours. Sarah counted 17 times between midnight and 6 a.m. The woman was clearly losing sleep over her inability to control my pool renovation. Meanwhile, my pool area had become the neighborhood gathering spot. Kids asking if they could swim once it was finished. Parents stopping by to see the progress. Everyone commenting on how much better the whole block looked with one properly maintained pool instead of a stagnant swamp. Here's what I learned about HOA lien laws during this escalation. Acceleration clauses allow HOAs to demand full payment of disputed fines, but they can't actually foreclose without proper legal proceedings and due process rights. Takeaway: HOAs cannot foreclose for disputed fines without proper legal proceedings and homeowner due process rights. Thursday's emergency meeting was tomorrow. Karen had no idea that her reign of terror was about to end, because I wasn't just bringing my evidence folder anymore. I was bringing the entire neighborhood. The day before Karen's emergency HOA meeting, my attorney Jennifer called with news that changed everything. "Mike, you need to sit down for this," she said. "I've been digging deeper into Karen's background for the discrimination case, and I found something that invalidates everything she's done as HOA president." "What do you mean, everything?" "Karen doesn't legally live in your neighborhood. She hasn't for 2 years." I felt my jaw drop. "What?" Jennifer explained what she'd uncovered. Karen's utility bills, voter registration, driver's license, and insurance policies all showed a different address 15 miles away. She'd been using her elderly mother's address on Maple Street for HOA voting eligibility, but her actual residence was in a completely different county. "According to your HOA bylaws, board members must be residents of the community," Jennifer continued. "Karen's been committing mail fraud by using her mother's address for official HOA business." The implications hit me like a truck. Every architectural decision Karen had made was legally void. Every fine she'd issued was invalid. Every rule enforcement action was without authority. There's more, Jennifer said. Property tax records show Karen claiming homestead exemption on the other property. She filed an insurance claim last year from the non-neighborhood address after a car accident. This isn't just HOA fraud, this is systematic deception across multiple agencies. I had to know more about this mother situation. Dorothy Whitfield lived 2 houses down from me, a sweet 78-year-old woman who always waved when I walked by. I'd assumed she was just Karen's elderly neighbor, not her mother. That evening, I knocked on Dorothy's door with a plate of Sarah's cookies. "Oh, Mr. Henderson, how thoughtful," Dorothy smiled, inviting me in. Her living room was filled with family photos, including several of Karen, from what looked like happier times. "I hope Karen hasn't been too difficult about your pool project," Dorothy said, shaking her head. "She's been so stressed since her divorce." "Divorce?" 2 years ago. She moved out to that apartment complex across town, said she needed space to figure things out. Dorothy's expression grew concerned. "She still uses my address for her HOA mail, though. I hope that's not causing problems?" Bingo. Karen's mother had no idea her daughter was committing fraud by using her address. "Has Karen been getting a lot of official mail here?" I asked carefully. "Oh yes, HOA business, voter registration updates, even some real estate license renewals. I just assumed it was temporary while she got settled in her new place." Dorothy revealed the whole story. Karen's marriage fell apart when her husband discovered she'd been using HOA funds for personal expenses. He filed for divorce and moved to another state. Karen couldn't afford the house payments alone, so she moved to a cheaper apartment, but kept using her mother's address to maintain her HOA presidency. "She told me it was just for a few months until she bought a new house in the neighborhood," Dorothy explained. "That was 2 years ago. This was the nuclear option. I could expose Karen immediately and destroy her completely. But something made me pause. Maybe it was seeing Dorothy's confused expression, or maybe it was strategic thinking, but I decided to let Karen hang herself publicly. I thanked Dorothy for the conversation and headed home to call Jennifer. "We sit on this information until the HOA meeting," I told her. "Let Karen dig her hole deeper." "Are you sure? We could end this right now." "I'm sure. She's been terrorizing this neighborhood for years. Everyone deserves to see her exposed publicly." Jennifer laughed. "You know this means every decision she's made as president is void, right? All those architectural approvals for her real estate clients, all the fines she's issued, everything?" "I know. And tomorrow night, the whole neighborhood is going to know too." Karen had no idea that her biggest secret was about to become public knowledge. She'd been living a lie for 2 years, manipulating an elderly woman and illegally controlling a neighborhood she didn't even live in. The emergency meeting was tomorrow. Karen thought she was going to put me on trial for pool violations. Instead, she was about to face judgment for fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. And I had evidence for all of it. The next morning, I called an emergency strategy session. Jennifer came over with her legal files and we spread everything across my dining room table like we were planning D-Day. "Okay," Jennifer said. "We have 2 tracks here, criminal and civil. Criminal charges include mail fraud, embezzlement, and filing false police reports. Civil violations include HOA governance fraud, harassment, and property damage from her vandalism. Which do we hit her with first?" "Both, simultaneously, maximum impact." We decided to let Karen conduct her emergency meeting normally, then systematically destroy her credibility with documented evidence. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. Let Karen present her case against me, then reveal that she had no legal authority to make any of it. Our coalition had grown to 18 families by this point. Everyone who'd been targeted by Karen's selective enforcement wanted justice. We organized weekly strategy meetings in my backyard by the pool, with string lights reflecting off the water like some kind of suburban war room. Each neighbor took responsibility for researching one aspect of Karen's fraud. Margaret Williams discovered Karen's real estate license, had 3 active client complaints filed with the state commission. Bob Rodriguez found records showing Karen had been claiming military spouse benefits despite not being married to a veteran. Another fraudulent claim. The smell of neighborhood barbecues had replaced the toxic atmosphere Karen created. People were actually talking to each other again, sharing resources and building genuine community connections. Susan Martinez, who worked at the county clerk's office, helped us compile the evidence systematically. Financial records proving embezzlement, witness statements from affected families, documentation of selective rule enforcement, security footage of harassment and vandalism. This isn't just about your pool anymore, Bob said during one of our evening meetings. This is about taking back our neighborhood from someone who's been terrorizing residents for years. Sarah's reporter friend from the local newspaper agreed to attend the meeting. The story had all the elements local news loves: HOA abuse, elderly exploitation, community uprising, and dramatic public confrontation. We need to understand the media angle, the reporter explained. This hits on issues people care about: property rights, local government corruption, and protecting vulnerable elderly residents. The local TV station expressed interest once they learned about Karen's real estate license violations. Nothing gets media attention like professional licensing fraud. Here's what I learned about ultra-virus doctrine during our legal preparation. When officials act beyond their legal authority, they can be held personally liable for damages. Since Karen wasn't legally eligible to be HOA president, every action she took was beyond her authority. Takeaway: HOA board members acting beyond their authority can be personally liable for damages. We spent hours studying Robert's Rules of Order to ensure proper meeting procedures. Karen couldn't shut down the meeting or silence speakers if we followed parliamentary procedure correctly. Research into state sunshine laws revealed that HOA meetings must be open to all homeowners. Karen couldn't exclude people or limit discussion of official HOA business. While we planned our legal strategy, we also prepared for community healing. After Karen's inevitable removal, the neighborhood would need rebuilding. Mike offered his pool for the summer community barbecue. Bob suggested a legitimate neighborhood watch program focused on actual safety rather than harassment. Margaret proposed monthly potluck dinners to strengthen community bonds. Karen remained oblivious to our discovery. She spent the week filing additional complaints with city, county, and state agencies, threatening neighbors who attended our unauthorized meetings, and posting increasingly unhinged Facebook rants about property values and community standards. Her social media activity had become a case study in escalating paranoia. Screenshots of her posts would make excellent evidence of her deteriorating judgment and fitness for HOA leadership. The sound of children playing in my pool area had become a neighborhood soundtrack. Kids asking when they could swim, parents stopping by to check progress, everyone commenting on how much better the block looked with proper maintenance instead of neglect. Meanwhile, Karen's house grew increasingly isolated. Lights off most evenings, curtains drawn, the woman clearly consumed by stress and anger. Friday evening, we held our final strategy session. Jennifer had all the legal documents prepared for immediate filing. The coalition had rehearsed presentation order. Bob would start with questions about financial management, Margaret would address selective enforcement, and I would deliver the final revelation about Karen's address fraud. Remember, Jennifer cautioned, let her talk first. Give her enough rope to hang herself, then present the evidence systematically. The emergency HOA meeting was tomorrow night. Karen thought she was putting me on trial. She had no idea she was walking into her own public execution. The weekend before the HOA meeting, Karen's behavior went from unhinged to completely unhinged. I'm talking full psychological meltdown territory. Saturday morning, I woke up to another motion alert on my security cameras. There was Karen at 3 a.m., dressed like a suburban ninja again, but this time she wasn't just poisoning plants. She was dumping her household trash in my yard. Coffee grounds, banana peels, empty wine bottles. She was literally throwing garbage over my fence. My HD cameras captured everything in beautiful 4K resolution, including her face when she realized the motion-activated floodlights had turned on. Sunday brought a new level of desperation. Karen filed a formal harassment complaint against me with the police, claiming I was intimidating and threatening her through surveillance and stalking behaviors. When Officer Martinez came to investigate, I showed him the security footage of Karen dumping trash in my yard at 3 a.m. "Sir," he said, shaking his head, "I think we know who the actual problem is here." Monday escalated to workplace harassment. Karen started showing up at Sarah's school, claiming she had safety concerns about a teacher who was involved with neighborhood troublemakers. The principal had to escort Karen off school property and inform her that future visits would result in trespassing charges. She looked terrible, Sarah told me that evening. Hair unwashed, makeup smudged, clothes wrinkled. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Tuesday brought Karen's nuclear option. She attempted to bribe me. She knocked on my door with a folder of papers and a fake smile that looked more like a grimace. "Mike, I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot," she said. "I'm prepared to waive all your fines and fast-track approval for your pool renovation if you'll just stop interfering with HOA business." Interfering how? These neighborhood meetings, the legal research, getting people riled up, it's not good for community harmony. I looked at her folder. Inside were blank architectural approval forms and a handwritten note promising to overlook all my violations. So you're offering to illegally waive fines that were illegally imposed in the first place. Her fake smile cracked. I'm trying to be reasonable here. Thanks, but I'll pass. After she left, I called Jennifer. She just tried to bribe me with immunity from illegal fines. Please tell me you recorded it. Security cameras caught everything. Wednesday brought the most pathetic attempt yet. Karen tried to split our coalition by offering individual deals to other neighbors. She knocked on Margaret's door, promising favorable treatment for future projects. She offered Bob expedited approval for his accessibility improvements. She even promised Susan's kids could run their lemonade stand without permits. Nobody took the bait. In fact, people started calling each other to compare notes on Karen's bribery attempts. Meanwhile, the professional consequences were mounting. 2 of Karen's real estate clients canceled their listings after discovering her behavior through social media. The HOA management company sent a formal letter threatening to drop their contract due to legal liabilities arising from board member conduct. Karen's business partner, another real estate agent, publicly distanced himself from her increasingly erratic actions. I want to be clear that Karen Whitfield's personal disputes do not reflect the values of our agency, he posted on LinkedIn. Thursday brought my favorite Karen meltdown yet. She filed a lawsuit against me for defamation of character through my harassment campaign and conspiracy to damage her reputation. Jennifer literally laughed when she got the court papers. She's suing you for exposing her own illegal behavior. This is the worst legal strategy I've ever seen. The best part? Karen filed the lawsuit from her real address, the apartment complex 15 miles away. She'd just provided legal documentation proving she didn't live in our neighborhood. By Friday, Karen was showing up at neighbors' workplaces to complain about their disloyalty to the community. She ambushed Dave Thompson at his construction site, demanding he stop supporting troublemakers who don't respect authority. Dave's response, "Lady, I think you need professional help." The acrid smell of dying plants where Karen had poured herbicide was finally fading, replaced by the fresh scent of new growth. My pool area had become a symbol of renewal, clear water, healthy landscaping, and neighbors gathering peacefully while Karen's house sat dark and isolated. Friday night, I could hear Karen's garage door slamming repeatedly. Sarah counted 23 times between midnight and dawn. The woman was clearly having a complete breakdown. Saturday brought one final desperate move. Karen attempted to call an emergency session to expel troublemaking homeowners from the community for conspiracy against legitimate authority. She had no idea that her own authority was completely illegitimate, and in 48 hours, the entire neighborhood would know it. The emergency meeting was Monday night. Karen thought she was launching her final attack. She was actually committing public suicide. The final week before the HOA meeting, Karen went completely off the rails. I'm talking full scorched earth, burn everything down, desperation that would have been hilarious if it wasn't so destructive. Monday morning, she filed a restraining order request against me, Bob, and Margaret, claiming we were conspiring to harass and intimidate her through our organized campaign of neighborhood terrorism. The judge took one look at our evidence folder, including security footage of Karen vandalizing my property, and denied her request within an hour. Tuesday brought Karen's most pathetic move yet. She attempted to call an emergency HOA meeting to expel all the troublemaking homeowners from the community for insurrection against legitimate authority. The problem? She sent the notice to everyone's houses, including people she was trying to expel. We all knew exactly what she was planning. Wednesday, Karen tried her most desperate gambit. She filed a civil lawsuit against me for intentional infliction of emotional distress and conspiracy to damage her professional reputation. Her claim? That my pool renovation and harassment campaign had caused her to lose real estate clients and suffer severe psychological trauma. Jennifer called me laughing so hard she could barely speak. "Mike, she just sued you for renovating your own pool. And get this, she filed the paperwork from her apartment address again. She's literally providing more evidence that she doesn't live in your neighborhood." By Thursday, the professional consequences were cascading like dominoes. The State Real Estate Commission scheduled an emergency review of Karen's license after receiving multiple client complaints and evidence of her erratic behavior. Her insurance company started questioning claims she'd filed from an address different from her stated residence. Karen's response to mounting pressure? She tried to get the city to condemn my pool as a public health hazard by claiming the construction process was creating mosquito breeding grounds that threaten community safety. The city inspector who responded was the same guy who'd come out before. "Sir, I've never seen someone work this hard to get a pool condemned. This is the cleanest construction site in the county." Friday brought my absolute favorite Karen moment. She started showing up at local businesses where coalition members worked, demanding they fire employees who were participating in anti-community activities. She ambushed Margaret at the library, where she volunteered, claiming Margaret was indoctrinating children with anti-authority propaganda through story time. The head librarian had to call security. She confronted Bob at the VFW hall, accusing him of using his military status to recruit conspirators against lawful neighborhood governance. The other veterans literally laughed her out of the building. She even showed up at the elementary school again, demanding they investigate Sarah for teaching children to disrespect legitimate authority figures. The principal threatened to have her arrested for harassment. Meanwhile, our coalition had discovered Karen's most damaging secret yet. She'd been collecting HOA dues from new residents twice. When people bought houses in the neighborhood, she was telling them dues were $200, 0 cents per month, when the actual amount was $50, 0 cents. She'd been pocketing the difference. "This is systematic fraud," Jennifer explained. "She's been running a con game on new homeowners for at least 3 years. We're talking about an additional $8,000 in stolen money. Some families had paid their entire year in advance at the inflated rate. Karen had kept the extra money for personal use while telling the HOA board that dues collection was challenging with new residents." Saturday brought Karen's final nuclear option. She threatened to foreclose on every coalition member's house, simultaneously claiming emergency HOA powers during what she called a community insurrection. She sent certified letters to 18 families demanding immediate payment of all disputed fines plus emergency assessment fees, totaling thousands of dollars per household. Pay within 72 hours or face foreclosure proceeding. And the neighborhood response was swift and decisive. Instead of intimidating people, Karen's threats brought everyone together. Kids set up a lemonade stand to raise money for the Neighborhood Defense Fund. Local businesses posted "Karen Whitfield Not Welcome" signs. The story started going viral on social media as people shared screenshots of her unhinged Facebook posts. By Sunday, Karen was showing up at people's houses at random hours, demanding to speak with the ringleaders of this conspiracy. When nobody answered their doors, she'd stand in driveways shouting about property values and community standards until neighbors called the police. The sound of her increasingly erratic behavior, garage doors slamming, car doors banging, shouting matches with her elderly mother, had become the neighborhood's warning system. When you heard Karen losing it, you knew to stay inside. Here's what I learned about RICO Act applications during this final escalation. When someone engages in a pattern of fraud across multiple victims using an organizational structure, it can qualify as racketeering under federal law. Takeaway: HOA officers who systematically defraud homeowners can face federal charges under racketeering laws. The emergency meeting was tomorrow night. Karen thought she was launching her final assault on the troublemakers who dared question her authority. She had no idea she was about to face public judgment for years of fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. Monday night, 7 p.m. The community center had never seen anything like it. Normally, HOA meetings drew maybe 8 people on a good night, mostly Karen and her 2 committee friends. Tonight, 67 homeowners packed the room. Folding chairs lined the walls. People stood in the back and the energy was electric. Karen sat at the head table looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Her usually perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup uneven, and her hands shook as she shuffled through her papers. She had no idea what was coming. The local news crew sat up discreetly in the back corner. My attorney Jennifer sat in the front row with evidence boxes stacked beside her. Bob Rodriguez, Margaret Williams, and our entire coalition filled the first 3 rows like a jury waiting for justice. Karen called the meeting to order and launched into her prepared statement with the confidence of someone who thought she still held all the cards. "Welcome everyone to this emergency session to address ongoing violations that threaten our community standards," she began. "This year has been successful in protecting property values through firm leadership and consistent rule enforcement. She presented falsified financial reports showing balanced books, thanked herself for maintaining neighborhood excellence, and announced her plan to increase architectural review fees to $500. Some residents have challenged legitimate HOA authority, she continued, glaring directly at me. But this board will not be intimidated by troublemakers who refuse to follow basic community rules. That's when Bob Rodriguez stood up. Karen, I have a question about your actual address. Karen's composure cracked slightly. That's not relevant to tonight's business. I think it is. Where do you currently live? I don't see how my personal information relates to HOA governance. Next question. Margaret Williams stood next. I'd like to know why I was charged architectural review fees twice for the same project. Karen's face flushed red. Some people don't understand proper procedures. You obviously didn't follow the correct submission process. I have receipts showing I paid the HOA $50 and you personally an additional $150 for the same approval. That's completely false. You're obviously confused about... Jennifer stood up and the room went dead silent. Mrs. Whitfield, I'm attorney Jennifer Walsh, representing multiple homeowners in this community. I'd like to present some evidence for the board's consideration. Karen's face went white. This is not a legal proceeding. You have no authority. Actually, state sunshine laws require HOA meetings to be open for homeowner input on official business, and fraud definitely qualifies as official business. Jennifer opened her first evidence box and pulled out bank records showing Karen's embezzlement of architectural fees. These documents show systematic theft of HOA funds over 3 years. She displayed utility bills proving Karen's address fraud. These records show Ms. Whitfield hasn't lived in this community for 2 years. She played security footage of Karen vandalizing my property and dumping trash in my yard. The room erupted in angry murmurs. Karen started hyperventilating. This is a setup. You're all conspiring against me because you're jealous of my success and leadership. That's when I stood up for my mic drop moment. Karen, you want to talk about leadership? Let's talk about the fact that you don't even live here anymore. I walked to the front of the room and faced the crowd. Karen Whitfield has been using her elderly mother's address to maintain HOA voting eligibility while actually living 15 miles away. Every decision she's made as president is legally invalid because she's not a resident of this community. The room exploded. Neighbors were shouting questions, demanding answers, calling for Karen's immediate removal. Karen completely lost it. You have no right to investigate me. I am the president of this HOA. I decide what's legal and what's not. Actually, said a new voice from the back, that's not how the law works. Officer Martinez stepped forward, and Karen's face went completely pale. Miss Whitfield, I have a warrant for your arrest on charges of embezzlement, mail fraud, and filing false police reports. The crowd fell silent as Karen's world collapsed in real time. This is harassment. These people are persecuting me for doing my job. Ma'am, please stand up and place your hands behind your back. As Officer Martinez read Karen her rights, a representative from the State Real Estate Commission stepped forward. Ms. Whitfield, your real estate license is hereby suspended pending investigation of fraud allegations. An IRS agent appeared next. We'll also need to discuss your unreported income from fraudulent HOA fee collection. Karen was led out in handcuffs while the entire community watched. As she passed my row, she hissed, "This isn't over." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Yes, Karen, it is." Bob Rodriguez was unanimously elected interim president by acclamation. The first order of business, voiding every fine Karen had issued and refunding all illegally collected fees. Takeaway: fraudulent HOA officers lose all legal protection and face personal liability for damages. Justice had been served, and it was beautiful. The aftermath was swift and satisfying. Karen pled guilty to embezzlement, mail fraud, and filing false police reports to avoid a trial that would have exposed even more of her criminal behavior. She received 18 months probation, $25,000 in restitution payments, and 500 hours of community service. Her real estate license was permanently revoked, and her house went into foreclosure within 3 months. She moved in with her sister in Arizona and is permanently prohibited from serving on any HOA board. Last I heard, she was working at a call center and still posting bitter rants on Facebook about corrupt neighbors who destroyed an innocent woman's life. Meanwhile, our neighborhood transformed completely. Bob Rodriguez led a complete HOA reform initiative. New bylaws limited board powers, required transparent financial reporting, and established a real 5-member architectural committee with rotating membership. No more one-person dictatorships disguised as community leadership. My pool became the official neighborhood gathering spot for monthly meetings. Instead of Karen's hostile interrogations, we had actual community discussions about real issues like street lighting, playground maintenance, and organizing block parties. Margaret Williams spearheaded a community garden project that brought families together around a shared goal. Dorothy, Karen's mother, became our beloved neighborhood grandmother figure, hosting weekly coffee mornings and sharing stories about the area's history. The personal vindication felt incredible. My pool renovation was featured in Better Homes and Gardens as an example of DIY excellence and community spirit. Sarah was nominated for Teacher of the Year once the stress of Karen's harassment finally lifted. Property values increased 15% as word spread about our tight-knit, supportive community. But the best part? I started a consulting business helping other neighborhoods fight HOA abuse. Turns out, Karen-type situations are epidemic across America, and homeowners need practical guidance for standing up to petty tyrants. I created a website documenting every legal strategy we used against Karen, providing templates for public records requests, sample letters for attorney consultations, and step-by-step guides for exposing HOA fraud. The site gets thousands of visitors monthly from homeowners facing similar harassment. Takeaway: most HOA abuse cases can be resolved through proper documentation and understanding of homeowner rights. Our coalition established the Henderson Family Scholarship for Trades Education, helping young people learn skills like electrical work, plumbing, and construction. We figured if more people understood how to improve their own properties, fewer Karens could intimidate them with bogus permit requirements. The annual Maple Street Festival raises funds for the local food bank and has become the neighborhood's signature event. My pool hosts free swimming lessons for kids whose families can't afford private instruction. Elderly residents receive volunteer home maintenance from neighbors with construction skills. The bigger picture impact exceeded our wildest expectations. The local newspaper series on HOA abuse sparked state legislation requiring oversight of HOA financial management and board member eligibility verification. I testified before the state legislature about the need for homeowner protection laws. Our story went viral on social media, inspiring similar community organizing efforts nationwide. Karen became a cautionary tale in HOA management training programs, and our legal strategies are now taught in continuing education courses for real estate professionals. Every summer evening, you can hear children's laughter echoing from my pool area. The sound of international cuisine during monthly potlucks replaced Karen's toxic atmosphere with genuine community connection. Our updated neighborhood sign reads, Maple Street, where neighbors care for neighbors. Karen's former house was bought by a young family with 3 kids who immediately became neighborhood favorites. They painted it bright yellow, installed a playset in the backyard, and host the loudest, most joyful birthday parties you've ever seen. Sometimes I stand by my pool in the evenings, watching neighbors chat over fences, while kids play safely in the water that caused so much drama. Clear, crystal blue water that works perfectly, surrounded by healthy landscaping and genuine community friendship. That's when I remember the most important lesson from this whole experience. Sometimes standing up to bullies means standing up for everyone. When you expose one tyrant, you create space for an entire community to breathe freely. So here's my challenge for you. If you've got your own HOA nightmare story, drop it in the comments below. We're building a database of Karen behavior to help other homeowners fight back. Share the specific tactics they used and how you responded, or how you wish you'd responded. And if this story helped you understand your rights a little better, hit that subscribe button. Because next week, I'm telling you about the time my other neighbor tried to steal my driveway and ended up owing me $50,000. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. Remember, knowledge is power, community is strength, and Karens are temporary. But a properly renovated pool? That's forever.